Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hopefully, everyone is having a fantastic week. All right, so this week we're going to get into distribution strategies. And this video right here, I'm just going to be honest with you. This is an overview of distribution, but distribution is a beast. There's a lot that goes into it. So today we're just going to give you a basic understanding of exactly what distribution is, what it means for you, especially if you're a local entrepreneur or you're a business manager. What are some different things that you want to be looking at as you're creating your distribution strategy? Down the road, we'll get into more advanced techniques, but it's really important to have a basic understanding first. Now, I want to say this, because a number of you have probably read books on distribution or you've watched distribution videos, and you have your direct distribution, indirect distribution, and it just seems very, very, very simplistic, and you really do not understand what to do as far as that goes. Yes, indirect, direct, but what's everything in between? And then some of you may have read or watched the video on complex logistics operations and operations management and optimization. This video right here is going to fit somewhere in the middle, right? So we're not going to go so vanilla where I just tell you, hey, you got indirect and direct. We're going to get a lot more into it, but I don't want to overload you to the point where you're like, oh, wow, all these complex logistic formulas. What is going on here? This video is going to give you a nice basic understanding. So you're going to know exactly what is distribution, how exactly does it work, and more importantly, what does it mean for you and your business, and what areas do you need to optimize? All right, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to jump right into it. When we're talking about distribution, what we're really talking about is how do your customers actually receive your products and services? So if you're making, let's say you're making a cup, this right here is your business. The cup is made in a manufacturing plant. How does that cup get from the manufacturing plant to the consumer's home? If you're doing a service, let's say you are a graphic designer, how exactly does your service of creating that design actually get sold and get into the hands of your target audience? So that is what we're talking about with distribution. So whenever you hear distribution, really what it's talking about is how do consumers receive your products and services. So these are the different activities that you need to think of when you're engaging in distribution, right? So number one is manufacturing. And we talked about this in the product and the solutions section. Are you going to manufacture your products in-house, or are you actually going to outsource it, all right? So you have and again, I'll use this right here. You have a cup that's made in a manufacturing plant. Well, what happens next? Does the cup go straight from the manufacturer to the consumer? Or does it need to be stored in a warehouse first before it actually gets shipped to the consumer or to the store? All right, just remember, when you're at a manufacturing plant, the facilities, and all the space in the manufacturing plant, that's designed to manufacture. That's not designed to store finished products. So you might need to ship it from the manufacturer to the warehouse. Think of a BMW plant, right? So a BMW plant will make BMWs, but you're not going to store tens of thousands of BMWs at that facility. You got to ship it out so they can make new BMWs, right? So we're talking about the warehouse. All right, but how does it physically get to the warehouse? So you can see the red arrows, that is logistics, that's transportation. How are you actually going to transport your cup from the manufacturer to the warehouse? Okay, now how are you going to sell it? Are you selling it to the customer directly? Are you selling it through Amazon? Are you selling it through your website? Are you selling it to Walmart and then Walmart's reselling it? All right, so how exactly does the consumer buy your product or your service? And then finally, how does it get to the consumer? If it's Walmart, the consumer goes to the store, they make a purchase, they have the product in their hands. It's already set, they have it. If you're buying something on Amazon, well, how do you get it? It has to be shipped to you, right? So that is what we're talking about with the distribution activities. Now, for some of you, you might be saying, hey, I'm a service. I sell my service and I deliver it to the consumer. That's great. You only have to worry about these two. Some of you might actually make a product and ship it straight to the consumer. That's great. You won't have to worry about these two. But when we're talking about distribution, here are the activities, and you get to decide what does your business need, what does your business not need, and how do you optimize the process. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about in this video. That's the basic overview for you. So the basic needs: inventory, warehousing. Distribution starts once your product is complete. Once your product is made, that's when distribution starts. If you are a service, distribution starts when you start selling your services, right? So the activities needed is inventory, warehousing, logistics. How does it actually get from the manufacturer to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the store, from the store to the consumer? Sales, how are you going to sell your product? Are you selling it online? Are you selling it in person? Are you selling it through distributors? How does the consumer physically receive the product? So these are the activities that we're going to be talking about. Now, again, what if you're a service? What do those activities look like? Well, let's say you are a builder, all right? The materials that you need to build a house, where are they stored? You can't put all of these different building materials in a specific location. Or what about your equipment, the backhoes and the tractors and everything? Where are they stored, all right? Do you need inventory warehousing? Logistics, how are you actually going to get the building supplies to the actual location that you're building? Sales, who's going to sell the different products, all right? And obviously the customer, how does the customer receive the product? So even if you're a service, I'll use another example. Let's say you are a interior designer, all right? Do you have inventory that you need to warehouse? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe you have furniture in a warehouse. Maybe you order it direct as you need it. Logistics, if you're doing an interior design for a house or an apartment, how does that furniture actually get to the apartment? How do you sell your services? How does the consumer receive your services? Are you doing the actual interior design? Do you have people under you that are doing it for you? Are you subbing it out? All right. So those are all the things that we're going to be talking about. So you can see the distribution activities, whether it's products or services, it's pretty much the same exact thing. The question is, what does your business need? What does your business need? All right. So magic question. How do we create a distribution strategy? What are the tasks? What are the steps? What do we need to do to create a distribution strategy? All right, step one, task one. Select your degree of placement. What in the world is a degree of placement? What are we talking about? All right, we have 4 options here. Intensive, selective, exclusive, integrated. All right, so what exactly are these 4? Now, it's really important that you decide what your degree of placement is first before you even jump into your distribution strategy. The reason why is because the decision that you make right here is going to impact all the future decisions that we're going to be talking about. So it's really important that you know exactly what your degree of placement is right now. So what exactly are we talking about? Okay, first one, intensive. So with an intensive degree of placement, you want to be in as many places as possible. You name it, you want to be there. Think of Pepsi. Where can you buy Pepsi? You can buy it online. You can buy it on an app. You can buy it in stores. You can buy it at restaurants. You can buy it at amusement parks, theme parks, convenience stores. You name it, it's everywhere. That's what we're talking about as far as intensive. Are you a product or service that you want everyone and anyone to have access to, and you want it in as many places as possible? So that's option 1. Now you might be saying, well, obviously everyone wants to be everywhere. Why would I not want my product or service in every single store? Well, that goes to the next one. And the next option is selective, where you want limited channels and you only want channels to match your brand. Let me give you an example. Think of Rolex. Does Rolex want to be sold everywhere? Does Rolex really want to be at Walmart? No, because it doesn't match the brand. Walmart is looking for decent products at a cheap price, and that is not Rolex. Rolex is a good watch, and you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. You're going to pay a heavy penny for it. It is luxury. So they want to limit They want to limit the different channels that they distribute on. They don't want their Rolex in every single store. They only want the Rolex in stores that match their price point, that have a high luxury status, that's going after the same exact tier that they're going after. So you might not want your product or service everywhere. You might want it selective and only match distribution channels that match your brand. Okay, so that is selective. Here's another one, exclusive. This one's interesting. How many of you have ever gone to a new car dealership? How many of you have ever gone to a new car dealership? Okay, now let me ask you this. If you went to a Ford dealership, are they selling brand new Chevys? No, absolutely not. Why? Because if it's a Ford dealership, they're exclusive to who? Ford. That's what we're talking about. So it is an exclusive channel to the brand. Car dealerships is a perfect example. Same thing with Jeep. If you go to a Jeep store, they're not going to be selling brand new Fords. Now, yeah, they might have used cars on a lot of different brands. I'm not talking about that, but the new cars are exclusive to that brand. Another example is many of you have actually probably gone to a authorized dealer of a cell phone company. So you might go to Verizon store, but the Verizon store is not run by Verizon directly. They're an indirect dealer of Verizon. So they're their own business, they're their own entity, but they are authorized to sell Verizon cell phones. Well, if they're authorized to sell Verizon, are they going to be authorized to sell T-Mobile as well? Unless you're Best Buy, most likely not. That's not going to happen. So you can see all these local independent stores that are authorized retailers. Think of like almost like a franchise in a sense. And franchises do fit under this model. They only sell exclusively to the brand that they are licensed to. All right. So exclusive franchises fit into this as well. All right. So are you an exclusive dealership? Let me give you another example of an exclusive degree of placement. Let's say you're building a house. I'm in the process of building my house, so I have a lot of home building examples today. Let's say you're building a house, and it's a brand new subdivision, and the builder is in charge of building all the homes in this subdivision. You pick out the floor plan, you pick out the colors, and then they build it for you. Well, they actually might offer you a home security system. It's not mandatory. You don't have to buy it, but it's an option for you to buy it. And they actually have a specific home installation security system company in mind. Maybe it is CPI, for example. So CPI is exclusive to that builder. Now, after you buy your house, you can put whatever home security system you want in it as you wish. But as the house is being built, if you want all the pre-wiring pre-installed and everything set up ahead of time, CPI is the only company that they use. They're exclusive to CPI. All right. So now you might ask, well, why is a company exclusive? Well, they're probably giving better rates. I'll give you a cheaper price if I'm the only one that you use in my area, sign a contract with me, stuff like that. Next, this is interesting. So here's the fourth option, integrated. And when we're talking about integrated is you're not buying the product standalone. The product is actually within another product. Let me give you an example, Intel. Everyone has heard of Intel. How many of you have actually bought a computer that has an Intel Inside sticker on it, right? So many of us, almost every single one of us who are listening to this video at one point or another have used a device that is run by Intel. But how many of us have actually gone to the store to buy an Intel processing chip, right? So we've all used an Intel product, but we've never bought it. Why? Because it's integrated into another product. It's integrated into another product. When we buy that laptop that uses the Intel processing chip, that is what is actually in the product, right? It's integrated in the product. When you buy a car, you're not buying a car and saying, okay, I want this alternator, I want this brake pad right here. It's integrated in the purchase. So with this type of business, you're not selling to the consumer directly. You're selling to producers of products saying, hey, listen, you want to use my product inside of yours. You want to integrate my product inside of your product because it's going to make your product a lot better. I'm selling my device to you. You make your product better, than you sell it to the end consumer. Does that make sense? So integrated, it will normally be, maybe a few exceptions, but it will normally be business to business, and you're selling it to another company because they're going to integrate your product inside of theirs. You're not a standalone. Your product has very little value by itself, but it has tremendous value when it's united with something else, right? So an Intel chip by itself, just the chip itself, without any other device, really, what is the value in it? The value is when it is operated and integrated inside of a computer, because that is when it's able to use its ability, right? So that's integrated. Let me give you another example. When you buy a house, you don't say, hey, listen, I want to pick this sub and this sub and this sub and this sub. It's included in the house. It's included in the house. The builder is the one who picked the different subcontractors, the plumber, the electrician, right? So when we're talking about integrated, that's another example. Let's say you are an electrician. Maybe you don't want to go out and sell your services to the end consumer directly. You want to partner up with the builder. Hey, listen, I know you got this new development. You got about 300 houses. I'd love to actually do the electrical work for these houses. I'd love to be one of the subcontractors that you use. I'm going to give you a pretty good price. You can integrate my electrical skills inside your house, right? Same exact thing. It is integrated. That service is integrated into the building of the house, right? So that's what you're going to ask. So the first thing you have to do, and we have it right here, is understand your degree of placement. Now, again, it's important to understand this because your channels are going to depend on what strategy you select. Obviously, if you select an exclusive strategy, you're not going to have a lot of distribution channels. They're going to be limited. But if you have an intensive strategy, you're going to have a ton of channels for you at your disposal because you want your product everywhere. If you're going to do an integrated strategy, you're not going to be selling to the consumer directly. You're going to be selling to businesses who do sell to the consumer. You're going to be selling your services to improve someone else's product. It changes the ballgame. So this is why you have to understand what is your degree of placement first before we go anywhere else, okay? So that's step number one. All right, what's task number two? How do customers buy? We're going to reverse engineer. All right, what am I talking about with reverse engineer? Well, we know the product starts at the manufacturer, right? It has to be made. Then it's stored at a warehouse. It's sold to the consumer, whether online or a store or in person, and then the consumer gets it. Once we've identified our placement strategy, our degree of placement, now what we're going to do is instead of starting with the manufacturer and working back, I'm going to start with the customer. How does the customer want to receive your product? And then I'm going to go backwards and I'm going to work my process backwards. So I'm going to start with the customer. How does the customer want to receive my product? And then I'm going to go backwards. All right. So where do your customers make their purchase? Now, this is going to be different based on your business. If you are a B2B business, you're not going to go to Walmart and say, hey, listen, I'm looking for accounting services for my business. No, you're going to do some type of probably direct sales or some type of advertising. The type of business you are in, how do your ideal customers make that purchase? That's what you want to identify. All right, what are some examples? Because there's so many different options. Do they buy online? Do they buy on an app? Is it Dunkin' Donuts where you actually have your rewards program on your app and you put an app order in before you show up to the store? Do they go to shopping malls? Do they go to shopping centers? Do they go to standalone locations where it's just a basic store all by itself on the side of the road? Is it direct sales where you actually look for a sales representative, advertising, for example? Do you go to trade shows? Now, these are more business-oriented. Trade shows or conventions. You hear about the home show or the hot tub show or they even have a distribution and supply chain trade show, all right? Wholesalers, distributors. Is your customer, maybe your customer is an actual retail store and they get their products from wholesalers or they get their products from distributors. Maybe it's associations and partnerships. Maybe you are an interior designer and you work with a remodeler And you guys both go out and try to solicit business, and you always work together. You have a partnership developed. Maybe it's a referral partnership where different people in your industry, you give them a 25% referral fee if they get you a job, right? An association, maybe you have maybe you do business with the restaurant association, something like that. How do your target audience buy? How do your customers buy? That's what we have to ask ourselves in this question. And make the list. Make all the different potential options. And I also want you to think of partnerships. I want you to think of partnerships. So for example, let's say you offer some type of business service, right? For you to actually go from business to business, that's a lot. How can you get a bunch of businesses at once? Well, maybe you do an event with the Chamber of Commerce. Maybe you do an event with the entrepreneur group in your town. Maybe you do an event with a business association. That's what we're talking about with associations and partnerships. You're going to be a little bit more creative, but you can get a lot of businesses at once. If you're going after hair salons, is there a hair salon convention where you can actually get a lot of hair salons in one spot? Okay, so that's what we're talking about with that. So now notice what we're starting to do. You have your degree of placement, and now you're starting to list your channels. Now I'm going to give you two examples. One example is going to be a local coffee shop. Another example is going to be a service interior designer. So I want to give you two examples so you can see how we build this out, all right? So the local coffee shop, they want an intensive degree of placement. So they want their coffee in as many places as possible. So how exactly are they going to distribute their coffee? Well, they're going to sell their coffee online because they know customers buy online. They're going to sell their coffee through their app. They're actually going to have a mobile app because they know that's where the customers are. They're going to have a couple of physical brick and mortar locations in Main Street districts, right? So not necessarily heavy downtown districts, Main Street Greenville or Main Street Hendersonville. They're going to have brick and mortar locations in Main Street districts. They're also thinking about having a coffee truck. So the coffee truck, they can actually drive to downtown districts. They can drive to festivals, weekend events. They also want to sell to restaurants. So they want to sell their ground coffee to restaurants so restaurants can actually use their coffee. Remember, this right here is a one-off integrated approach, right? So they're going to sell it to restaurants so restaurants can actually use their coffee in their business. And they're going to try to sell it at Walmart. All right, so you have a lot of different channels right here because why? We have an intensive strategy. So we want to get as many places as possible. Let's look at another example. Let's say you're an interior designer. Now, you're an interior designer. That's labor extensive. Do you want your product everywhere and anywhere? No, I want to be selective. I have a specific type of design skills. I have a specific type of customer I like to do business with. I actually want it to be selective. I want it to be something that I provide value to that customer, not just anyone. And I'm primarily going to focus on, let's say, restaurants and hair salons, all right? So how am I going to sell my services? Well, we're going to do direct sales. So I'm actually going to go out and meeting with business owners directly and see if I can be of service to them. I'm going to go to trade shows, so a restaurant trade show I'm going to go at and talk about my interior design and remodeling skills. I'm going to go to networking events to see if I can network with business owners and see if I can offer my services. And I'm also going to network with remodelers and builders. Hey, if you're building this restaurant or if you're remodeling this restaurant, here are my services. Let's see if we can do business together. All right. So you can see it's a little more restrictive. It's a little more selective. All right. So that's what we're talking about in that stage. Okay. Task 3, location specifics. This task is so simplistic, but it's so important. And so many small businesses and entrepreneurs will often overlook this. This is an extremely important section. So what am I talking about when I say specific locations? All right. Well, let's look at the geography. Are you looking to establish in rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas? What cities, what states, what nations are you looking to do business with? Are there specific venues? So if you say, hey, I want to be in shopping centers, okay, what shopping centers are you specifically looking at? Geography is very important for a number of reasons. Here's why. Walmart had a strategy and they said, you know what? I want to compete with Kmart and Sears. Kmart and Sears is primarily in urban areas and they're in suburban areas. And if I go into those areas, I'm directing with Kmart and Sears direct. I'm competing with them directly, but also the rent is and the leases and the land is so much more money. It's so much more expensive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be just on the outskirts of the suburbs, just on the outskirts of the suburbs. Semi-rural, not too rural, but right in between the rural and the suburbs. And I'm going to have a distribution plant that's going to be very cheap because the land is very inexpensive. The taxes are going to be less inexpensive. And I'm going to service the outer ring of an area. I'm going to service the outer ring of the suburbs of an area. And I'm going to save money on distribution such as that. And obviously we see what Walmart did, right? That was one of their primary moves was geography, right? They wanted to go an area where that's a lot cheaper. And they knew that that could actually help save money down the road. Or are you a coffee shop and you need to be in an urban center? You need to be in a heavily trafficked area. Or you're a hair salon and you need to be in on a street that has a lot of drive-by traffic, right? That's why geography is so important. That's why geography is so important. Where are you going to be? Do you need a lot of foot traffic? Do you want to be out on the outskirts so it's less money where people would actually travel to you? Are there specific states or cities, or are you looking to be local? Are you looking to be statewide? This is so important. What is your ring? What is your geography area? Okay. Next, if you're going to do partnerships or referrals, what does it look like? Let's be specific. If you're going to say, hey, listen, let's partner up. You refer people to me. I refer people to you. That's great. But what does that referral look like? Are you going to give them a percentage of a kickback? Are you going to give them a set amount? Are you going to give them promo material? Are you guys going to book jobs together where you have a remodeler and an interior designer and they always do work together? What exactly does it look like? What exactly does it look like? If you're going to wholesale to a group or you're going to integrate your product in a group, again, what does that look like? Hey, I'm CPI. I'm going to wholesale my services to you, Mr. Builder, that has 200 houses. Here's the discount that I'm going to give to your homeowners if you actually pitch my services. Or integrated. Hey, I'm an electrician. I want you to use me as the subcontractor as you build your homes. Here's the special discount I'm going to give you. Here's why my work is such a high quality, right? This is where we start to get a little more specific. So you look at your channels, and now we want to get a little more specific. Okay, what does this look like? Okay, we're going to do our coffee example, coffee shop. All right, well, I want to sell online. Great. What locations? My own website, and I'm going to sell on Amazon. All right, that's what we're talking about, specifics. I want to sell on an app. Great. What apps? My own app, I'm going to sell on Amazon. Great. Okay. I want to be in Main Street districts. Okay, great. Where? I want to be in really the Southeast, and you have a couple of states right here. I want a food truck. Fantastic. Where's that food truck going to go? It's going to go to festivals, and be specific. Have a calendar of festivals lined up. And I want to go to business districts during the week. So business professionals, they have a truck. They can go right downstairs from the office, get coffee, and go right back. Okay, I want my coffee sold in restaurants. I want restaurants to use my coffee, all right? Am I going to sell it to all restaurants? No, I'm going to do a 30-mile radius from my stores. I don't want to go expand too quick where I don't have the resources. Okay, Walmart. What Walmarts do I want to be in? Nationwide. This is what gives you an example, right? So this right here starts to set the stage. You start to see a geographic area. Okay, I know what channels I'm going to use. To what extent am I going to use these channels in? This is very, very, very important. Okay, now, let's use another example. Let's say you're an interior designer. So sales for an interior designer. All right, I want to do direct sales. Great, where? I'm going to do direct sales a 50-mile radius. A 50-mile radius from where I am. And what I'm going to do is if I have a partner, I'm going to give them a 25% commission. So if someone actually sells, does a direct sales, and they actually make a sale for me, I'm going to give them 25% of the bill. So you can see now it's starting to be a lot more specific. Trade shows. I'm only going to go to trade shows in state because there's a lot of travel that has to do with it, right? Networking events. I'm going to go to networking events within a 50-mile radius of me. And I'm going to offer a referral fee for partnerships. So, hey, listen, if you refer me to someone and they actually sign on, I'm going to give you $500 flat fee. All right. So anyone that anyone that does business with me because of you, because you referred me, I'm going to give them $500. Okay. Builders, I'm going to give them wholesale pricing, and maybe your wholesale pricing is a 35% discount, all right? So now you're starting to see how the strategy is starting to build out. I'm no longer saying, yeah, I'm just going to do direct sales. No, look at how I'm building this out. I'm a lot more specific. I have a lot more channels. I have a lot more fishing poles in the pond to catch that fish, all right? So you can see how I'm actually expanding the different channels. All right, now, this is an important one. Task 4. In-house or outsource? Are you going to manage all of these supply channels and all of these sales channels yourself, or do you need help? Now, there's pros and cons. Obviously, if you do it yourself, you have more control. You keep the money. If you hire someone out, you got to pay them, right? And obviously, you lose control. There's pros and cons in both, right? Can you do it yourself, or do you need help? Now, this is an issue that I see with many entrepreneurs, especially as you're building. And you also see this with business professionals. Because so many times you try to do everything yourself. And your hours, you only have so many hours in a day. You can only do so much. So you may need to get assistance. You may need help. So can you do it yourself, or do you need help? All right. So who can help us? What type of entities can actually help us sell our products? Well, you get a distributor, you get a franchisor, you can get a wholesaler, direct sales, retail. All right. So there's a lot of different options that you have. Let's look at these a little more one by one. What exactly is a distributor? Well, a distributor is going to help in the following. They're going to actually store your goods. So they're going to help with the warehouse issue. They're going to assist you in the marketing of your products and services. They're going to sell to wholesalers and retailers themselves. And a lot of times they're going to be exclusive to your brand for your area, right? Not all the time, but sometimes. So for example, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, they have distributors. They sell the distributor the syrup, right? The actual syrup. And then what the distributor does is they take that syrup, they put the carbonated water in it, they put it in the bottles, and they send it out to all the stores. That's what the distributor does a lot. That's a lot of work. So are you able to get a distributor? Next, franchise. Obviously, this is a big operation, right? But do you want to do a franchise model like McDonald's? So a franchise model is you are the corporation. You manage the most of the advertising. You manage the brand. You manage the image. You manage the product selection. You manage all that stuff. So what the franchisor does is they have a local location. They assist in upfront capital because they got to give you money up front to actually buy into the franchise. It's quicker expansion because instead of you having to create 1,000 stores, you have 1,000 franchise owners who are creating and operating the stores. You actually have people in local environments to help you with the sales, and obviously it offsets expenses because you have a steady flow of people buying from you. So a franchise model is a potential. Wholesaler. Now, wholesaler and distributor, it often gets confused. Here's what happens. A distributor you want to think of as a partner. They partner with you to help get your product in stores. They partner with you to help get your product marketed, sold, distributed, all that stuff. Wholesaler is a little bit different. Wholesaler says, okay, you have 10,000 units. I'm going to buy 8,000 of them right now. I'm going to pay a much cheaper price because I'm going to resell them to different stores. But I'm going to buy them wholesale. So they actually buy from you wholesale. Now the job is done. Done, over with. You're gonna sell them at a much cheaper price, but you're gonna get bulk volume. All right, so that's a wholesaler. Direct sales. You actually hire a direct sales company, and they're gonna sell directly to the consumer on your behalf. All right, and obviously retail. I don't own Walmart, but this little cup right here, I could actually sell to Walmart. I could use a drink myself. Are you going to sell your product or service in other businesses? All right. So those are some of the things you want to think of. All right. This is where we talk about different types of distribution. Direct distribution, all activities are in-house. So you are going to manage the warehousing, the distribution, the selling, and everything. Everything's in-house. Or indirect distribution, where you're going to get a distributor or a franchisor or a wholesaler or a direct seller or a retailer to actually sell your products or services. Okay, what one do you want to go with? And you might do an option. You might do some stuff you do yourself, some stuff you do indirect. A lot of companies nowadays, because our economy is so integrated, will actually do a combination of both. All right. Pros and cons. So with direct distribution, you control the channels and obviously you make all the money. The con is it's resource extensive, especially if you're a local entrepreneur. You might not have the resources. You might not have the capability to actually get into and doing all of these different products or services yourself. Indirect. The pro is alleviates the lack of resources. So I have a distributor who's doing all this work for me. The con is you could lose some control of the channels and you obviously have to pay them, right? So if the distributor is distributing to the different stores, you don't have that capability, right? Because you're not doing it yourself. So you got to make sure that the distributor is representing your brand properly. Now, in a future video, we're going to talk about how exactly you can get a distributor and how you get a retailer. This video, I just want to go over the basics with you. All right. So where are we at? This is the coffee example. I want to sell online. I'm going to sell on my own website. I'm going to sell on Amazon, and it's going to be a combination of in-house outsourced, right? So in-house is my own website. Obviously, I don't own Amazon, so that's outsourced, retail outsourced. App, same exact thing. My own app, Amazon. I own my app. Amazon owns their app, right? So that part's outsourced. Main Street districts. I'm going to do South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia. I'm going to own some of the restaurants, some of the local chains, but I'm also looking at franchising out. So I'll own some of the stores, but I'll also franchise some of the stores. Coffee truck, I'm going to do the coffee truck in-house. Restaurants, I'm going to try to get a restaurant distributor for that. And I sell to the distributor, and they actually get my product, my coffee grounds sold to the local restaurants. Walmart, same thing. I'm going to get a distributor that has a partnership with Walmart already and try to get my coffee into their stores. All right, now let's look at the interior designer. Direct sales, in-house outsource, right? So I am going to do myself 50-mile radius, but I also want to hire someone. I want to hire a company to do direct sales on my behalf, and I'm going to give them a 50% commission. Trade shows in-state, I'm going to do that in-house. Networking events, 50-mile radius, but I'm also going to give a referral fee, right? So I'm going to try to get people to pitch my products and services on my behalf. Builders, I'm going to give them wholesale pricing, and I'm actually going to wholesale to the builders, right? So now, look at what we've done. Look how complete this is, right? Now, this is a complete distribution strategy. This right here is a more complete distribution strategy. This is so much better than you saying, all right, are you going to select indirect or direct? Great. All right. Now you actually have some detail behind it. So now what you need to do, the final task, is you need to select your channels. You might have all these channels that look good, but what channels are realistic for you? What do you actually have the resources to compete? Listen, just like with advertising and all the other elements, start small and then work your way up. Start small and then work your way up. All right. So let's say the coffee example. I'm going to go online. I'm going to go on an app. I can do that. I'm going to do the Main Street districts, but I'm only going to do in-house. Maybe I still like the franchise idea. I'm not going to do it yet. I'm not ready for that. So I'm just going to focus on a couple of locations in-house first, get my systems up and operated, right? Get my systems up and rolling, and I'm going to focus on that. Coffee truck, fantastic idea. I just don't have the resources for it yet, so I'm going to put on hold. I want to do it, but we're going to wait a tad bit for it. Okay, restaurants distributed, that's great. Walmart, seems like a great idea, but like all those returns and it's just, I'm just not ready for it yet. I want to start this first, and then I can expand to other elements later, right? So that's what we're talking about. What do you have the resources? What do you have the capability? What channels are you going to select? Same thing with the interior designer. Okay, I'm going to do direct sales. I'm going to do networking events. I'm going to do builders. Trade shows. Trade shows are a lot of time. I'm going to do some traveling, even though if they're in state. I think I'm going to hold off on the trade shows for now. I'll do that later. I'm going to focus on these right now. All right. So you can start to see, okay, now I know what my channels are. All right. All right. Don't worry. That was the extensive part of the video. The next couple of tasks are going to fly by. So now that we have our sales channel, now we want to ask is how will customers actually receive your products, right? How will customers actually receive your products? So they made the purchase, they made the sale. Well, now they need to receive your products. Okay, here's some examples. So if they purchase on an app or online, if you buy something on Amazon, does Amazon give you the product over the phone? No, they ship it to you, right? Or maybe if you make a purchase, if you make a purchase online, a travel company, they email you the confirmation, right? So how exactly are you receiving the product or service? If it's a service, do you have to go, like if you're doing getting your hair cut, right? A service of getting your hair cut. Do they come to you or do you got to go to their location? All right. Do they come to you or do they go to their location? If you're subcontracting it out, if you hire an electrician and the electrician subs it out, is the sub coming to you? How exactly does that work? Retail, you're probably buying it and getting it, receiving it at that time. So if I buy a cup at Walmart, I have the cup already with me. I take it with me. Direct sales. Is it going to be shipped to the customer location? Do they have to pick it up at a business location? Is it subcontracted servicing it? How exactly does that work, right? So we have to talk about and we have to identify how does the consumer actually receive your product or service, all right? So now we're getting into our next stage of our distribution strategy. So this is our next worksheet. Product produced, where are products produced, all right? So let's say the coffee example, I am actually going to outsource, it's my recipe, but I'm going to outsource the production of coffee to a manufacturer. They're going to roast it for me and they're going to package it for me, all right, according to my formula. I'm going to outsource that. Sales, I have my different sales distribution chains right here. So how exactly is it going to get to the consumer? Well, if they go to the restaurant, obviously the restaurant, they get the coffee at the restaurant. That makes sense. And my own app is going to be delivery. Amazon is going to be delivery. On my own coffee locations, they're actually going to get the coffee at the coffee locations, right? So for each one of these sales chains, how is the consumer actually going to physically get the product? All right, so that's what we need right there. Okay, the design. This one's interesting because remember, this is the service, interior design. Where are products produced? It's a service. They're not being produced. So that's not available. You don't need to worry about that, all right? Now, right here, how are you going to sell? Remember, we get the builders, the network referral unit, the direct sellers. How does the customer actually get the product, the services? You're going to perform them, but you also might have some subcontractors that perform them as well, and it's going to be at their location, all right? So you want to actually identify how exactly does the consumer get my product. Next, where are products stored if needed? Where are products stored if needed? If you are in the manufacturing of goods or your service that has inventory that needs to be stored, where exactly is that going to happen? Do you need a warehouse? Do you need to store products? Do you need to store your inventory? And do you have the resources to actually store the products at the warehouse? All right. So your product is manufactured. Do you have a warehouse, or do you have to rent a warehouse, or do you have to get a subcontractor to deal with that? How are you going to get the product from the manufacturer to the warehouse? All right. So that's what you got to ask yourself. Do you do it in-house or do you sub it out? Even if you're a service, like I said, if you're a builder, do you have supplies that you get to store somewhere? Or do you get stuff delivered to you when you need it? All right. In-house or out-house? Are you going to inside or outside? Now, like we said, if you're a small business, you might not need a warehouse. So if you don't need it, you don't need it. Don't worry about it. All right, coffee example. How is the coffee actually going to go from the roaster to all these different services? Well, Amazon actually has a great distribution service where what they'll do is they'll actually house your products and services for you in all of their distribution locations. And then when someone actually buys on Amazon, or even if they buy from a different unit outside of Amazon, they'll ship it to that location directly. All right. So that is a fantastic service, especially for small business owners, because they handle the logistics, they handle the warehousing, they handle the shipping, all that stuff is taken care of. They even handle the returns for you. So that is an unbelievable service for small business owners, right? So that's something for you to look at. All right. Now, if we're a designer, you can see the designer, interior designer, they don't have to worry about it. Again, guys, don't force it. If it doesn't fit, don't worry about it. If it doesn't fit, don't worry about it. All right. Task 8. This is the last task. Who will handle the logistics? Who will handle the logistics? Now, we're talking about logistics. Okay, you have the manufacturer. Well, the good has to go from the manufacturer to the warehouse. Who manages that transportation? Who books it? Who pays for it? Who actually organizes it? Who ensures it was delivered on time and in perfect condition? Well, same thing, warehouse to sales. Who managed that logistics, all right? So are you managing the logistics, or is someone else managing the logistics, right? So manufacturer to distributor, distributor to wholesaler, wholesaler to retail, retailer to customer. Who manages the transportation of goods in that process? And again, how are these activities performed? Are you going to do it in-house? Are you going to outsource a logistics company, or are you going to have a distributor do it for you? Those are some of the things you got to think of. Now, even if you're a small business and you don't really have to worry about logistics, one thing you probably will have to worry about is procurement, inventory. Even the interior designer, if they're ordering furniture, how do they make sure that the furniture shows up on time? If you're a restaurant, who manages the inventory? The beverages, the food, who manages the inventory of the restaurant? Hair salon, who manages the inventory of all the different hair color products that you need, all right? Even if you don't have a sophisticated logistics element, you're probably still going to need someone that's going to manage the inventory, all right? So just make sure you have that all in place. And so right here, logistics. I'm actually going to have the Amazon distribution services going to handle the logistics for me. They're going to handle warehousing and logistics. And then on the restaurant side, my restaurant distributor is going to handle the logistics for me. I'm not going to do anything in-house. I'm going to deal everything with them, all right? My interior designer, I don't need to worry about it. I'm just designing personally. If a consumer wants to buy furniture, they're going to buy it themselves. I don't have to worry about that, all right? And then you can see, here we are. This is our final worksheet, right? And this helps you actually identify all the different stages of distribution. Now, some of you may actually have seen distribution charts that look like this, and all this is doing is just mapping out what does your distribution chain look like. There's many different examples, there's many different combinations. It's whatever works for you. Are you going to produce a good, send it to a distributor, who sends it to a wholesaler, who sends it to a retailer, sends it to a customer? That's an option. Are you going to produce a product, send it to a distributor, skip the wholesaler, go to the retailer, go to the customer? Are you going to produce a product and go directly to the customer, right? You have all these different options. Here are some different ones. Are you an interior designer? You're going to have someone sell for you, which goes to the customer. Are you a restaurant that's going to cook food that goes straight to the customer, right? Are you a manufacturer, a distributor, to a franchise, to a cut, right? Yeah, there's so many different options here. You have to pick what works for you. You have to pick what works for you. And that, my friends, is distribution. It was a big video. You might need to watch this a couple of times. And in the future, we're going to expand upon the series because this is just an overview. But even though this is an overview, it gives you a lot of tools and a lot of insights on exactly what you need to do for your distribution strategy. All right, Bible verse of the day, Mark 16:15. And he said to them, "Go into the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation." Go into the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. The spread of faith is distribution. It's word of mouth distribution. You're talking to one person, and it spreads from person to person. And we as individuals, we're called to enjoy the fruits of faith and the joys of faith and the blessings that God has. And then we want to share and spread the word of those blessings to other people. In the business sense, it's very, very similar as far as distribution is. You have a great story to tell. But now people also have to experience, not just hear, but they have to experience what that great story is through your products and services. And as we spread our faith and we experience our faith and spread it from person to person, the same thing is we have to find what channels that we're going to use to actually share the story of our business through our products and services to share with people and people. All right. I hope you learned a lot from this video. I hope you have a fantastic day. Make sure it's a successful one. Talk to you later.